Hi, for the past 84 days, we walked through something that most entrepreneurs never get to. Not just more information, not merely random tactics, but a complete system for building demand around your expertise, around your brand, and around your offers. Of course, we started with the foundation, right? We started with clarity, we started with positioning, we talked about building authority. And from there, we moved over to structure. So we talked about lead generation offers, we talked about funnels, we talked about email systems. Then we moved over again towards growth. So we talked about content engines, we talked about advertising with purpose. I can't forget that episode. We talked about demand amplification. Then we round up and finished with scaling, right? We talked about the offer ecosystem, profit optimization, and market dominance, which we talked about in last week. So if you zoom out, what you now have is not just a marketing playbook. What you have is a business operating system. It's a way to think about how attention becomes trust. It's a way to think about how the trust you gained actually becomes demand. And of course, it's a way to think about how demand becomes revenue. Because here's the truth that most people don't actually talk about. Information doesn't necessarily change businesses. Rather, it is implementation that does that. And that's what today's episode or this week's episode is about. The episode with which we are rounding up the 90 days oversubscribed daily challenge. However, we are not rounding up the podcast. The oversubscribed marketing podcast is still ongoing and we'll be specializing in a specific niche going forward. But in today's episode 13, from which we would get the day 85 to day 90 or day 91 if we're talking about Sunday, we will be using this episode 13 to round up the 90 days daily challenge we are doing on Instagram, TikTok, on LinkedIn. And I'm so glad, so happy to wrap up the 90 days daily challenge with this episode. Now, the real question after 90 days, after this weekend, is not what else should I learn? Instead, the real question would be, what will I build with what I now know? That is why in the coming episode, I'll be showing you step by step how we are going to implement this in specific niche, starting with, I think, skincare brand niche from coming episode. But to round up this 90 days challenge, and especially for this episode, let me talk about from strategy to execution. So that is the title of today's episode, from strategy to execution. All right, and I'll begin today's episode by talking about why most people never implement. Because in reality, it is not enough to learn the theory, all right, to learn the lessons. The real education is not in getting the information. The real education comes when you begin to implement. But most people buy courses, watch YouTube videos, watch Instagram videos, learn many lessons, but never implement. And this is a pattern you see across almost every industry. People would consume content, they would take notes, and they will feel inspired. I feel inspired, I think I should do something about it. But nothing actually changes in their business. And that's not because the information was wrong, but because learning can feel productive without actually being productive. You can listen to podcasts like this, you can watch videos and tutorials, you can read books, you can attend trainings. But unfortunately, you can still avoid the one thing that actually grows a business, and that is actually implementing and building the system that you've learned. You see, execution, it is uncomfortable, that is true. And execution reveals gaps in your knowledge. The things you thought you knew, when you begin to execute, you begin to realize, I didn't learn this thing very well. I need to actually learn. It's in execution that you actually begin to get educated properly. All right. And execution requires discipline, and it is also the only thing that produces the results. So if you take only one message from the entire 90 days daily challenge and in the entire 13th episode that including this one that you've watched so far, let it be this: that your business will not grow from the number of ideas you have amassed, that you collect, that you know. You have idea about advertising, you have idea about this, idea about this. It will not change your business, right? Your business will grow from the system you implement consistently. So you have to do something. You have to get up, all right? You have to decide on the audience you want to serve and you have to build system to convert them, and you have to build system to actually attract the audience to your funnel, build a funnel to convert them, and build a system to actually nurture them. And the whole system must include how to retain them and how to make them evangelists for your business. And of course, the system must be scalable, must be profitable, and everything that we have discussed in these past episodes. Now, instead of trying to do everything at once, the smartest way to move forward is to focus on 3 core phases. All right, you don't have to do everything at once. You can take it phase by phase. All right, so in the next 90 days from today, the next 90 days should be 90 days of implementation. All right, so you can take it as 3 strategic months. So month 1 is phase 1, month 2 is phase 2, and month 3 is phase 3. So each month would solve a different problem. So from next week, I'll be showing you in practicality how I will also be implementing this for a specific niche. And you can watch the coming episode with me and also implement it in your own niche. So let me talk about the 3 months, the 3 phases. The month 1 can be your clarity and offer alignment. Of course, I believe that before watching these episodes, you're already in business, you've already been selling your offers and everything. But in this month 1, you want to sit down and be clear about your offer, about the things that you actually want to sell. So before traffic, before the content volume, before the advertising, you want to answer 3 questions clearly. Number 1 is, what problem do you really solve? If you're realizing that your sales is not going forward, it's not going smooth, all right, you said today, tomorrow, no sales, next tomorrow, no sales, and your ad is not actually converting, traffic is not actually converting, you want to sit down with this first. You want to gain clarity. You want to deal with the foundation. If the foundation be destroyed, the Bible says, what can the righteous do? So you want to begin from the foundation. The foundation is dealing with your audience segment. Who are you actually serving, or what problem is your business actually solving? What outcome is your business actually giving people? All right, the problem, the outcome. Number 2 is that, who is this solution specifically for? Who is the person that has this problem and needs the solution? You have to answer that question. All right, like I said, I want to focus on a specific niche. That specific niche is the audience, right? If I'm focusing on skincare brand next week, that means the skincare brand owners and the formulators, they are the audience. The problem, they want to sell. The problem I'm solving as a growth partner, a digital strategist, is to build them a system. Everything I'm teaching you, to actually build it for them, implement it for them, all right, build them the system that actually help them scale their revenue. That is the problem and the outcome I actually want to give them. The problem they are having, they probably are struggling with ads, the ad is not converting, rising ad cost, nothing is working, they sell today, they don't sell tomorrow. Those are the different layer of problem, all right? And there are consequences of that problem. There is problem of the problem. The problem of the problem is that they're not going to have enough revenue to actually meet their overhead cost. They're not going to be able to scale as much as they want to scale, and so many emotional problems attached to it. That is the problem, all right? The outcome is that they actually want to scale their revenue with a strategic digital marketing. And that is what I am trying to solve for them. What am I solving it for? Of course, skincare brand owners and formulators. So you want to do this for your home brand also. And the number 3 question is, what transformation does your offer actually create? What is the transformation? What is the outcome? All right, we talk about the problem, talk about who the solution is for, and how your life look like when they've actually gotten your offer. Because the offer is to take them from point A to point Z. What is the point Z, right, that they would be in? And it's not just the obvious outcome, right? There has to be other salient things, the unspoken outcome. If they are able to 3x their revenue, what would it mean for their business? How would it change their business? How would it transform their business? How would it help them scale? How would it improve their profitability? How would it help them be the leader of the industry? All right, those are the transformation, not just the one that is obvious to everyone. So when you've answered these 3 questions, we want to design one entry point, right? And that is your lead generation offer. You already know the problem, you know who it is for, and you know the transformation. Then how are you going to bring them in? How are you going to get them to walk in through the door? All right, that is when you begin with a lead generation offer. And of course, if you've watched past episodes, especially on the lead generation offer, so you know what a lead generation offer is, right? So you want to craft an offer is something that is very valuable that helps your audience experience your thinking and help them understand your approach, that help them understand that you actually know their problem, you actually have a way to solve them, and you actually have credibility about how you've solved it for others. All right. So that is a lead generation offer. It is that offer that get them into the door, that make them your own market, right? Before you give them the lead generation offer, they are inside the broader market, but you want to bring them into your own ecosystem. You want to create a market of your own. With your lead generation offer, you'll be able to create a market of your own. You'll be able to create your own community, people who look up to you, wanting your solution. And of course, your positioning will go a long way in letting them determine if you are an expert or if you are just a newbie. All right, so you want to work on your positioning. Of course, what's positioning? Who you are serving, what you are serving them with, the solution you are giving to them. That's the positioning. So when the positioning and the offer, when the two of them align together, then your marketing will become easier. And that's why I said clarity is very important. The clarity will reduce resistance. With the lead generation offer, they are clear about what you can do for them, and all they need to do is to be ready to buy your paid offer. Now that we are done with month one, so month two is the content and authority systems phase. So once your offer is clear, the next step is consistent visibility. Now, this is not about random posting. No, this is posting authority building content. And from our podcast episode where we talk about content that sells, you want to create a pillar content each week, all right? Whether it's a podcast like this, whether it's a training, or any long form video that you want to create each week. And from that pillar, you want to generate your ecosystem of short form content. So from there, you have your short videos that you post on YouTube or Instagram Reels or TikTok Reels. You have your emails, even from those contents. You have the insights you can share. You have educational posts you can share. Everything leading back to that same long form content. And this is how attention becomes familiarity. And what happens when people are familiar with you, they begin to trust your brand. And that exactly is what you want to deal with month two. You want to publish content and build authority, familiarity, and trust with people that you're actually selling to. Remember, month one is about clarity, your offer, and everything. Month two is about building the authority. Now, going into month three, that is demand generation. Now, you want to ensure that you have more demand than you can even supply. But remember, month one and month two, you are building the foundation already. It doesn't mean that you not have demand generation in month one and month two. You can even have the demand generation in month one and month two, but you want to focus your month three. All right, you want to go all in with demand generation. And how do you do that? Once you already have your clarity, you have your authority, your traffic will now become valuable. Your traffic will become cheaper instead of being costly, because people are now familiar with your brand. So this is the moment where advertising makes a great sense. This is a moment where your retargeting would work very well, and this is a moment where your funnel would start converting very well, much more than in month one or than in month two. Why is that? Because in month one and month two, people are already identifying with the problem that you're solving, and people are already asking to buy from you, and you're already making sales in month one and month two. So the advertising in month three is to amplify the demand that you have already proven that this thing works. Your advertising should amplify the demand that already exists. So this is when marketing stuff feeling like you are chasing people. People already know you and they're already familiar with you. In fact, in month one and month two, you can even run ads that get your messaging out there, that builds your authority and make it stronger. So the retargeting is you're retargeting people who have already known you in month one and month two, who are already requesting to buy. So in month three, you are going all in getting these people all right, to actually buy from you. So they are the one chasing you, they are the one coming to your DM, they are the one coming to your website, to your funnel, to actually want to buy from you, because they already know you. They're not cold audience, all right, as much as they were in month one. Now they're warm audience and they really want to identify with your brand right now. So that is that about building this 90 days system. So if we simplify everything that we've covered in these 90 days, the system would look like this. Number one, attention, then to authority, then to trust, then to demand, then you have more clients, more profits, more expansion. Yeah, your content by itself creates the attention. Your positioning with that content builds authority. Your email and familiarity with your brand would nurture trust, right? And of course, the offer would convert demand. And the whole system would create profits, and discipline would sustain the growth. Yeah, that is the structure. And every thriving digital business, every thriving online business follow this structure in one form or the other. The difference between struggling businesses and growing one is rarely about intelligence. It's more about structure and consistency. And consistency is very important because people want to build a structure and expect to start making millions from day one. No, you want to be consistent because you're just learning, you're just implementing. You realize that you have a gap in your knowledge, like I've said before. You realize that there are other factors in running a business beyond this building system. But the more you're consistent at it, the more you begin to gain experience and the more you actually begin to make the profit that you actually want. Now, let me talk more about the discipline factor. You see, one of the biggest myths in entrepreneurship is that success comes from motivation. Many people want to be motivated to do what they know they should do. But the reality is that motivation would fade quickly, especially if it is external, if it depends on somebody else trying to motivate you. Right? If it is internal, if you know your why, all right, if you know your purpose, if you know your passion, then it's already internal, all right. But if it is external, it's more likely to fade very quickly. All right. So even if you have that internal motivation, what will sustain the motivation and keep you going and will sustain your growth is discipline. The discipline to pursue that purpose, to pursue the passion. Many people have dreams and passions that they never pursue. The difference between those who know what they should do and they keep doing it consistently and those who know what they should do but are just like a decimal about their life is discipline. The discipline to keep publishing when your engagement is slow. All right. The discipline to keep refining your offer when sales are slow. It takes discipline for me to keep creating this content that I'm showing you right now. All right. When I began this 90 days challenge, all right, I was having issues with my business, but I kept on publishing regardless, even if what I'm saying may not make sense. But even with this publishing, I have learned a whole lot by trying to publish this content. I have learned a whole lot on what I should do by me trying to teach you what you should do. All right, so this is what discipline would help. Once you decide you are going to be disciplined, you are going to be consistent in publishing what you're supposed to publish, you're going to be consistent in building the system, in engaging the system, then you are good to go. All right, so you must have discipline to keep building systems even when the results are not immediate. Because the reality of the matter is that growth rarely happens in dramatic leaps. All right, it's not that today you earn any 1,000 naira per month before today you just earn 100 million naira. That's not how growth happens. All right, growth happens through compounding effort over time. All right, growth happens because you've been consistent and you already have your credibility and everything backing you up. David did not wake up from his father's house and just decide, I want to go and kill Goliath. No, the grace to kill Goliath, or the audacity to decide he would kill Goliath, was born out of the fact that God was with him, and out of the fact that he had credibility. He had credibility before Saul, the king, and that credibility was that he had killed a lion and a bear, because the fate of the whole nation was upon him. Nobody would authorize you to take the weight of the whole nation upon you and decide the destiny of the whole nation if you don't have credibility. All right, so God was with him, but he had proven something. He had been consistent in the past, and because of his consistency in the past, the pattern, he killed the lion, he killed the bear. He told Saul, I'm going to kill Goliath also. So you have to be consistent. And in killing Goliath, it was evident that God's hand was upon him and he would be king. So you want to be consistent over time, and that is when your growth, the compounding effect of your consistency, your efforts would lead towards your dream revenue, your dream success. So in essence, when people say this guy is lucky or this guy, God just uplifted him, check what he has been doing in the past. He was consistent at doing one thing very well. So you have to be consistent in building the system and don't quit early. Now, this is the last episode of me giving you the process of getting oversubscribed. All right. And the purpose of this series was not simply to teach the strategies. The purpose of the series is to give you a way to think about building a modern digital business. The beautiful thing is that the internet has created a world where expertise can scale, but scaling expertise requires structure. And that is what I've attempted to investigate and then teach. All right. So now that you have the structure, the real question is no longer, do these systems work? All right. Instead, the real question is, will I commit to building them? Will I commit to building this system? Because in reality, businesses that implement these principles consistently become something powerful. And by becoming powerful, I mean they become oversubscribed. They become known. They become trusted. and eventually they become the obvious choice in their markets. And that is what I want your business to be in the next 90 days. If you decide to implement everything you've learned from episode 1 to this episode 13. Now, let me go back to the scripture. All right. Now, there is a principle that appears repeatedly throughout scripture, and it is that when something is entrusted to you, it is meant to be developed. It's not meant to be hidden. It's not meant to be neglected. It's not meant to be ignored. Rather, it is meant to be developed. Right. So when God gives you opportunities, talent, and ideas, these they carry responsibility. And one of the greatest forms of stewardship is to have the discipline to actually build on these gifts that God has given you, the discipline to refine the gifts God has given you, the discipline to grow, and the discipline to serve. You have to decide that I want to grow, I want to scale, I want to build an oversubscribed business, I want to manifest, I want to take advantage of all the opportunities, the gifts, the talents that God has given me. Growth is a responsibility. All right, it's you saying yes to God. You have given me this. I owe it a responsibility to actually grow. All right, growth is not just a business pursuit. It's a reflection of how you have stewarded what has been given you. So that means a mandate that you must grow. When Jesus talked about the parable of the talents, those who multiply their talents, they got rewarded for it. So that means it is your responsibility. You must decide, I have to grow. It's not a wish. You have to build systems that leads towards your business growth. And that is the whole purpose of this 90 days oversubscribed daily challenge. But again, the 90 days daily challenge, learning how to build a system that gets you oversubscribed, that 90 days daily challenge already ended in this episode. But this podcast has not yet ended. All right, so the first episode 1 to 13 of this podcast is to lay down the structure and teach you how to build the structure, the system that leads to becoming oversubscribed. But the real work begins from now. The businesses that will grow over the rest of this year, 2026, over the next year, over the course of the years to come, will not be the ones that just consume the most content and learn the most lessons via videos, books, tips, whatever. Instead, they will be the ones that implemented the most systems. So you have to take what you've learned, choose one strategy with it, build one system, refine one offer, and stay consistent long enough to see the compounding effect. Because demand is not accidental, demand is designed. And now you know how to build demand. In the next episode of this podcast, I will be showing you how I am going to implement this system over the next 90 days in a specific niche in the market. I think I'm going to go for the skincare niche, all right? Why? Because I have a skincare client I am currently working with. Of course, the client is an ingredient manufacturer, but I am going for the skincare brand themselves, the formulators, those who are buying these ingredients from my clients. So I am going to see how I'm going to build a niche for them. Why not pursue the ingredient manufacturers? I don't think the market of those people are large enough. Right? For now, I want to work solely with this manufacturer. Let me just build this system for the skincare brand owners and formulators. From next week episode, I hope I will have something to share with you guys in next week episode 14. We've learned something in this podcast so far, and in this episode especially. And if you have not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? All right, click the subscribe button, share this episode to your friends, and we'll see you next week.